Welcome to the Nourish You Podcast, where we question the traditional model of dieting and nutrition and focus on choice, fun, and health for the whole mind, body, and spirit. I'm Jana Maurer, a non-traditional registered dietitian and well-being expert, and I want to challenge you to take 2% of your day today, listen to this episode, and make this your health win for the day. Pop in your earbuds, strap on your walking shoes, or pour a big glass of wine, whatever you need for today, and tune out the world as much as you can for the next 30 minutes, and let's fill up your cup. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Nourish You Podcast. Today, I have Caroline Thomason. She is a fellow registered dietitian, also owns a private practice. Hi, Caroline. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So, as always, I like for guests to introduce themselves and give a little bit of information about your background so that those that are listening can just know a little bit more about you. So, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. So I am, like you said, in private practice, own my own practice in Northern Virginia. And like you, I also work with women who are just so tired of dieting and doing things that don't work. So I really work with women to find confidence with food and build a better relationship with food.
So that's a big task.
Yes.
So from your perspective, like what have you found, like with the women that you work with, have you found like really has not worked for them?
Yeah. When people first come to me, they are always talking about that, they're just tired of the quick fixes, the fad diets, the people who are selling these kind of all or nothing mindsets. And I'm sure that you hear that all the time, but I think people are just really tired of doing things that don't work, and women come in and they've done a dozen diets that are all, 10, 12 weeks, and then they don't know what works after that. And so they're just so tired of living that all or nothing black and white space.
Yeah, so true. And it's interesting because like when it comes to nutrition, so right, like we are nutrition experts, we are trained in the science of nutrition. Yes, it is a science, but it's interesting. So often the nutrition information that we get is not actually backed by science. So it actually makes sense like why there would be so much confusion and just so much frustration, especially when, like you said, like the fad diets are what is heavily marketed to us and out there for us to easily consume. So from your perspective, what are some of the things that most of the women that you work with say routinely and that you have to like support them through?
Yeah, I think people come in and they're just so frustrated. And to your point, like the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like there are literally experts out there trying to figure out how to make their diet the most flashy, the most accessible for the most people to see it. Right. So yeah, like when people first come in, they're so frustrated and they're so tired of being sold this lie, and we're kind of sold this idea that if you fail on the diet, then you failed. And I think people are just starting to realize that the diet is the thing that failed instead of them.
Yeah. Or like, even like when you were speaking, I was just thinking like in that way, they are marketing experts. They're not nutrition experts.
Yeah.
And so what we literally have received is really, really excellent marketing, but we have not received really sound nutrition advice, which, messes us up because that's what we've been taught. And like when we're trying to And here's the thing, like, I think you and I were talking about this before we started recording is we're here to support women in many different ways. And one of those ways is weight focus, but that's certainly not the only way that we can really define success from a health perspective. So when we're looking at, well, I guess we should say like from a nutrition perspective, are like the main successes weight-based, or are there other ways that we can really define health success?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that question. I know that we've talked about that a lot just between the two of us. And I think the old way of thinking, and even like as dietitians, like the older generation possibly of dietitians was trained that weight is like the ultimate pinnacle of health, right? And I think we're kind of seeing this like new wave, literally a new wave of nutrition and research that is showing that yes, like weight could be an indication, but it's not the end all be all. And, so many people actually do find a really healthy way of living that maybe isn't like fitting within this perfect health standard of like BMI and a very specific weight and all of that stuff. I know you're laughing because I've seen you rant on that before online, but it's so true. And yeah, so like to answer your question, I just think there's kind of a new way of thinking about nutrition, the way that we view weight. And it's not just like weight loss is always the answer to your problem.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one coaching client in particular. I've been working with her for about a year, and she has had so many amazing strides as far as really defining what health means to her, not only in the moment, but also from a longevity perspective, getting more physically active, reducing stress, setting boundaries, like all the things that are part of a really healthy practice for yourself. But one of the things is she'll say that I still struggle with this idea that I think I should lose more weight and I really want to be in a smaller body than I am currently. And so we've had to really dive into, certainly addressing that because it is her goal, but also doing so in a healthy fashion to where we don't step into those extremes that are really very unhealthy, but also do never last for long. So how do you coach someone through that? Of like they've been working on their health, they've really done all of the things, and they still have a desire to be in a smaller body. What does that look like?
I think that's a really hard switch to make. And, to be honest with you, I would say the majority of people that reach out to me initially do have the goal of weight loss. And I think, given just what we were talking about with like diet culture, this, industry is so pervasive with this message that we should all be working on weight loss all the time. So it makes complete sense why people come in wanting weight loss. But one of the things that I do, and I know that you do this too, is like really assess if someone's even ready to lose weight from the get-go. And like, I spend a lot of time talking to people about like, what is it going to require of you to jump into thinking about weight loss? And are you physically and mentally even able to handle all of that stress? Because weight loss is stressful. Like, there's no getting around that. So yeah, I think, when people get to the point where like they're seeing all of these non-scale victories, right? Like you're mentioning, like they're feeling better, they have more energy, they're exercising consistently, they're managing their stress, they sleep better. Like we really do have to highlight those along the way so that those become like more of the focus. And, sometimes people get to that point and they're like, you know what? I think this is enough. I think I don't need to focus on weight all the time. And that's amazing for those people. And there's also other people, to your point about, they get to that point and they're just like, I still want to lose weight. I still want to focus on this. And I think that's the trickier client situation, because sometimes I've told my clients straight up, like, we are never going to be able to focus on weight. Like you are too like obsessed with food, disordered around food. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to really focus on that like in a structured weight loss way.
Yeah.
And then I have other clients where, we're always reassessing. Like, are you ready now? All right, not quite. Let's give it another month or two. Let's really focus on these behaviors. We'll check back in. So I don't know that the answer is like so black and white. Like I feel like I'm always kind of assessing with people whose goal is weight loss. I'm always kind of assessing like, can they mentally handle the stress that is going to be like diet restriction?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to pause for a second because I think you said something so powerful, is that you actually assess their capacity to lose weight. Because I feel like the thought is that at any one point in time, no matter how much craziness is going on in your life, that you can take on weight loss. And in reality, like you said, attempting to lose weight is literally putting the body in a stress response, because the body is not meant to be in a calorie deficit or an extreme calorie deficit for long periods of time. It's like, no, get me out of this. What are you doing to me? So the fact that you even have that conversation and the the woman gets to decide like, okay, is this something that I can realistically take on and not move into that unhealthy aspect that it, is anxiety provoking, depression provoking, impacts body image in so many ways. I think that that's so powerful that you give them that space to be able to do that.
Yeah. And while you were talking, I was thinking too, like, how many of your clients have been dieting or on a low calorie diet for months to years, like, of their life? And so one of the questions I ask when it's like, are you ready for weight loss? Is like, how long have you been trying to lose weight already? Because if you've been trying to lose weight for the last year, we can't just keep restricting more at that point. Like, and I think nobody is saying that. Like, you just don't hear that very much. And I think that's why people are so confused and always pushing the needle on weight loss is like even if you think about like the eat less, move more campaign, people are just always like, I'm not losing weight. I need to eat less or move more. Like, those are my options. And I think just really having that conversation with clients can be difficult. Not everybody is receptive to it. I think, some people just want weight loss, and that's fine. That's what their aim, not that I'm pushing, never losing weight, but some people just aren't receptive to pausing on weight loss for a little while. And I think, just discussing, what's realistic, like you said. And I think when people come to weight loss from a place of like desperation, tends to be where the waters get murky, and I think my most successful weight loss clients have been able to kind of rehab their relationship with food, get to a place where they're eating enough. And that once feeling of desperation towards needing to lose weight is now just like, you know what? I think I'm ready. It's like so much more neutral, and they're not like, I need to go on a diet tomorrow and lose 5 pounds. Like, that's the sense of desperation that I think a lot of people start with. And we do just have to like peel back the layers to get rid of that feeling. So you're not going to make very sustainable choices in that mindset anyways.
It's interesting because it seems like so this is the thought process that is shared with me often, is that if we don't hold on for dear life, we're going to lose all control, right? So like, if I'm not obsessively counting my calories or obsessively restricting or obsessively, getting on the scale or obsessively working out, then I am going to lose control and I'm going to be even larger than I currently am now. And I don't like my body in this current state. That is something that I hear often. And like, one of the analogies I like to share sometimes is it's like when you pick up a handful of sand and you are gripping it so tight, you end up losing more sand than if you can really release your hand a little bit, relax your grip, and then you basically are cupping the sand and more sand stays in than if you were just like attempting to, hold on for dear life, really. But it's that. So I hear that a lot. And I hear that a lot, especially in connection with weighing oneself, is oftentimes like, I don't know what it is about like women's routines, but how did we get to the point where it was like, okay for women to wake up in the morning and go directly to the scale? Like, how did that actually become part of our routine? Like, who taught us that one? And how does every woman know about that? It's like so interesting to me, but like this idea that if you aren't weighing yourself either once a day or multiple times a day, like I work with a lot of women that were weighing themselves, 5 times plus throughout the day. And that was really determining, what they would eat or how they would exercise for the day. And it was, how do we really step back from saying, okay, like we want our eye on it, right? Like it's part of the equation. It's not the entirety of the equation, but we don't want to have it be the only defining point. So where does that like idea of like the connection point of having to, be obsessively connected with scale and it being like the right thing to do in order to prevent weight gain? Like, where do you hear that from women, or like, where do you think that comes from for us?
Oh my God, that is such a strong theme. So many women are, I'm thinking about one client of mine in particular. She would weigh herself in the morning before breakfast. That would determine what she would eat for breakfast. And then she would weigh herself after breakfast. And it's like, okay, well, of course you are going to gain weight. You just drank water and ate food like that. You have to talk on some level of like the physiological. It's impossible to gain a certain amount of fat in 2 hours, right? So we're just noticing those fluctuations from normal body functions throughout the day. But something that I talked with her about a lot is this idea of if you look for it, you can find it. So if you look for breakfast causing you to gain weight and then you fluctuate a pound after breakfast, you're going to be able to find evidence for what you're looking for. But if you know that your weight is going to fluctuate throughout the day and you know that you're making generally like positive choices towards your overall goal, then you also can find evidence that that's working too. But it's just like, what are you focusing on? And I think like this diet culture that we live in does have us constantly checking in and focus on our weight. So any small fluctuation, we're like, oh, I knew it. That was it. I knew it was what I had at lunch, like whatever. And so I think part of it is like, really, we just have to start focusing on the things that we know for a fact are going to move us toward our goal. And we do have to kind of remove this like level of neurosis around specific things like our weight or calories or like whatever the number tracking thing is that, that person may be struggling with. So it's tough, and do you ever like remove the scale completely from some of your clients? Like, do you ever just tell them, you know what, we're just going to take a break for a while. We're not going to get on this scale.
Yeah, I have. For, whether they do it or not, right? Like that's a whole thing. But so when we really like pull that back, yes. And here's why I like this. So it's actually like, so what you said is I love it because like you're putting energy and intention into things, right? Like, and usually, generally speaking, like when you put intention or energy into things, like you start winning with it. But the scale is so counterintuitive because the scale is a lagging indicator. It's outcome based, right? Like it doesn't actually do anything for us as far as moving us forward. It's literally like dead, right? Like it is dead. Like it does nothing other than you get to step on it and it tells you your gravitational force. But like then, so that's why it's like, well, the idea is, well, I'm putting focus into the scale. Why isn't it changing? Because the scale doesn't actually there's no behavior of change that's associated with the scale. And so that's why we want to really start pulling back. And that is what I found, like, especially with the coaching clients that I recommend to really pull back from it, is they were putting so much attention into the scale that it was draining all of their energy to be able to put into those things, the behaviors, the habits that would actually get the change that they're looking for. So the change was, the scale was literally helping them determine how they felt about themselves for the day, if they were successful or not successful for the day, like you said with your other client, like what they would eat, what they would not eat. And there, in no way should the scale be giving you that information. There's nothing about the scale that could really capture your habits because of those physiological changes that happen, right? Even like if you're getting ready to start your period, good God, don't step on the scale. Like, just don't do it, right? Like that is one, you're in an emotional state, likely you're more emotional, but two, we see that the fluid fluctuations with women before they start their period, that's a natural part of overall hormone regulation. And we don't need to be, pestering ourselves and adding to the flame of like, oh, I'm a failure during that period of time. So to answer that question, yes, there are several times, and it really is based on, like you said originally, like assessing where that client is and what their capacities are and how it's going to be either helpful or potentially hurtful.
Right. I love that. And I love that you said like the scale is not associated with behaviors. So I think the question really becomes like, what is the behavior that we need to focus on to move the scale? So it's like such a backwards thing, but like, I think, there's no amount of obsessing over the scale that's going to help. Like there's no amount of weighing yourself that's going to help. It's not a behavior, it's just a number. And so we do have to really focus on the behaviors, the habits that are going to move the dial down the road.
So let's get in, let's shift a little bit. I mean, it's still like, we're going to be highlighting these themes throughout, but let's talk about this idea of like a healthy relationship with our bodies, with the scale, with food. Do you think that you can form a healthy relationship with those things, and still engage in weight loss?
That is such a loaded question. I do think you can. I don't think everybody can. I think the answer is nuanced, and I work with people who have, disordered eating and a bad relationship with food, a very long history of dieting. For those people, like if you have 30 years of dieting under your belt, it's probably going to take a lot longer to really neutralize counting calories, the scale, weight fluctuations. We do have to, kind of like when I was saying, you have to remove that feeling of desperation. It's like once you don't feel desperate and all of these things that used to feel so important feel a little more neutral, then yeah, maybe we can start discussing if you're ever going to be ready for that. And I think it's going to look different for each person. I have people who have a really strong history of like calorie counting and tracking their food to the point where they have like PTSD from calorie counting, like calories in general. They're like, I can't even engage with those numbers anymore because they were in such a dark place with it before. And for those people, like, I don't know that we're going to focus on the scale for, maybe ever. I don't know. That's going to be a tricky place. Right. But then I have other people that it's, they do feel frustrated with dieting, but they get to a place of neutrality and kind of lose that sense of desperation very quickly. They get on, this really great groove with everything. And they usually tell me when they're ready to focus on weight loss. And I think as a dietitian, you can kind of sense when someone's bringing it up in a really healthy way versus when someone's bringing it up in like that kind of urgent, maybe disordered way. And so that's kind of like the entry point. I feel like I've lost the actual question that you originally asked, but that's like the entry point.
Yeah, definitely. Basically, can you establish like a healthy relationship with food, your body, your scale, and also engage in weight loss? And it, like you said, I mean, I feel like this is an answer like all of us dietitians will say is it's all relative, right? Like it's all relative, like, and it depends on the person based on your assessment where they are. And I want to add to that, like it changes throughout the process. So for example, like maybe someone is ready to take on and really, step it up a notch or whatever, and they're able to lose weight. But say during the holiday time, all shit hits the fan and they're not able to take on all of it. So now they shift back and they go into, okay, my goal is to maintain right now. That's my goal. My goal is to not lose my shit right now. Right? Like that is, and then after the holiday season, maybe after things calm down, all these other things, then they're able to shift it based on where they find themselves in the journey. So it's not this idea that it's a linear, like basically like a linear line down, right, to weight loss. It's this constant like ebb and flow, up and down. And that's actually where I think a lot of people can give up, is when they feel like they can't go, all the way in and they have to shift down. It's like, oh, well, then I give up completely. And then that's when we have to, the idea of like starting over again. So it's like this, you're going back and forth. It changes throughout your journey. It changes throughout your like someone's ability or like the capacity in which they find themselves. But it also is dependent on the individual of like, can they, in a healthy fashion, achieve weight loss?
Totally. I always say, I think maintenance is harder than weight loss. And I think people think the opposite is true, right? Weight loss is hard, but people are so comfortable trying to lose weight. They've been doing that. It's easy. They kind of know like what's expected of them. The rules are very clear cut, like it's black and white. But like learning how to navigate Christmas on no diet plan is so much harder because we don't know how to do that. No one really taught us like how to just maintain. How do you coast along with healthy habits and just live your life instead of being on a diet?
Oh my gosh. Yes, because like where out there is it being marketed to us? Maintain your current weight. There is nothing out there that is ever telling us. And like certainly like, I mean, you and I, for the most part, I believe coach women. But certainly this happens for men too. Like, I mean, the diet industry targets men as well. And if we're looking at just like overall weight trends for our society as a whole, they're shifting. It's not just, a specific gender based. But like the idea that you get to maintain and just to like enjoy is completely, something that we've never been taught.
Right. And like, how many people do we all know that have gone on this amazing diet transformation, body transformation? They've lost weight, they've reached their goal weight. And then slowly, like they just kind of went back to old habits. And it's like they executed the diet perfectly, got the result, but no one taught them how to move like into maintenance from there.
100%. I would say all women know how to diet. They don't know how to maintain.
Yeah.
So
totally.
How do you teach that?
How do you teach that, Jana? You tell me. No.
Okay. So like, this actually gets into a big thing of like celebrating the success, right? Like,
yeah,
it's so interesting. Like, okay, like just starting out, right? Like in that assessment process, this has happened where it's like so a client comes to me and will say like, I want to lose say 20 pounds. Fantastic. Sounds good. That's a healthy weight loss. It still puts you in a healthy BMI, certainly, achievable. They achieve the 20-pound weight loss. And they say, oh, but I really like to lose 5 more. Where the hell does that 5 more always come from? It's like, you've achieved your like, why is it always we cannot stop at our goal and say, wow, this is good enough.
Right. The goalpost always moves.
Always moves.
Yes. And I think to our point earlier, we were talking about non-scale victories. Like, you do have to kind of fall in love with those results that you're getting along the way in the process of becoming healthier, creating new habits. Like you almost have to fall in love with that more than the goal, because if you just want the goal, like you've reached the goal and then it's gone. That's it. It's fleeting,
Yes. So agree. And then also this is where a lot of people will share it. And like, I'm speaking like of my coaching clients, but also like this is the journey that I have been on as well. Like, and this is like the reason why I became a coach and a dietitian is because of my own struggle in this arena. So I like so resonate. And like, I constantly am in this, like, I want to figure out what this is type thing, not only to help other women, but also for my own journey. And it's very interesting because I feel like on that maintenance time frame. So I talk a lot about like the rebel that's within. And the rebel plays many different roles, like on the weight loss aspect, but then it comes out even more so when we're trying to maintain, because it's like, well, I lost all this weight, so now I don't have to do all my things, right? Like, so it's like, right. I don't have to, I achieved my goal and I've done all this like for however long, and now I don't have to do it. And this is something that I think helps with being able to maintain results, is that it's not an ends to a mean. Like your health and your health journey is something that you, sadly, I don't know how you feel about this, but you have to go, like you get to do for the rest of your life, right? Like it's not something that says like, oh, I'm done. Like it just like to be able to understand, I think fully understand and fully commit to like your health is a lifelong journey can be so helpful for being able to maintain the results that women achieve.
Yeah, I love that. And honestly, some of like the best, I think, client experiences I've had have been people who have come in with a goal. Maybe it was weight loss, and then life got crazy. Those people could have quit, they just started, but they were like, you know what? No, like this is a lifelong journey. And if I'm going to figure it out anytime, now is the time. And I say they're like the best client experiences because I think they've had the best experience of like figuring it out and getting through like this really stressful, tough time, and figuring out what works during that time has just been so pivotal for them long term.
Yeah. Why do you think some people are able to make that shift and others not?
I think part of it comes back to diet culture, right? Like, just we live in this society where we just believe that diets are the answer and that they're going to get us the transformation we need. So it's just a harder sell to talk about this long-term process that you're going to be working on for the rest of your life, but it's still, more important and sustainable and all those things. I think that sometimes can be the harder selling point. I don't know. Why do you think?
So a couple things. I think mindset is like the biggest one of whether they think that they can actually achieve it or not. And then actually too, like if they are partnered, if their partner is supportive of their journey as well. I just know like so many women, whether they have a boyfriend, fiance, husband, whatnot, if their partner is behind them and supportive of them and taking that journey with them, not necessarily, like all the way, but is just like, is there for them, they will by far succeed versus someone that does not have a partner that's involved or that even wants them to be doing this. I've had people, stop coaching because their husband said they don't want them to get too skinny. And, that's a real thing. So I think definitely mindset of the individual, like believing that you can that this is something that you can achieve. And then second behind that is if they are partnered, their partner's support.
Yes. I think community and just having support is probably the number one indicator of, are you going to be successful? And I'm pretty sure like the research backs that up. I'd have to like look through it, but I feel like I've heard that before from experts, it's like, if you don't have support, if you don't have people in your corner with anything, like so much of our success is really based on the people that we spend the most time with.
So true. Okay. Yeah. So we have like 2 more minutes here, kind of wrapping it up. What are some like key takeaways that you just want women to hear as we are in their, support, their community of support, but then also just to bring that voice of a different way, maybe that they've heard before? Like, what would you like to just leave them with?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can't believe the time has already passed. I think that the biggest thing is, if you have been really weight focused for a long time and you haven't been more behavior focused, I feel like that was maybe one of our strongest themes here is really like, instead of thinking about the numbers, the scale, what are the actual behaviors that you could start creating? And what are the behaviors that you're the most excited about? Because I feel like people go on diets and they're not that excited about it. They just force it. And if you're not excited about something, you're not going to do that for very long. So it's like, what can we start getting excited about? What can we have fun with? What are the habits and behaviors you actually want to create? And like, let's start there with something that feels realistic, for sure.
So true. Not about like all the things that you can't have well, frankly, it shouldn't leave you starving and eating cardboard food. I'm just going to put that out there. Like you need food and it should taste good. Like, geez. Well, yeah, I love that because I love how you said like, it has to be realistic and in reality because that's going to match their lifestyle. Right. So, and that's totally a big part of success.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I know that we're coming at our time, but I just want to thank you for sharing your expertise in this arena because you help so many women on their journey of forming a healthy relationship with food and like redefining what that means outside of the scale. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day-to-day to tune in. If you loved today's content, leave me a review letting me know exactly what you liked best. And remember to share my podcast with others to join the Nourish You community. If you want more great content like this between episodes, I encourage you to join my mailing list. You can click the link below in the show notes or check out my website at www.healthwins.org, and let's stay in touch. Until next time, I'm Jana. Talk soon.